はヒリュー、二高生のヒリュー。このカウンターに入ってから指揮に従います。あなたの完成に従うにふさわしい存在だから。
Hi guys, this is Tabiasobi, and today I'm finally posting my Hiryuu Meta guide for Azur Lane. So I've actually been wanting to post this for some time now, but I wanted to personally verify stuff for upgrading and limit breaking first, which I finally got to do after acquiring 10,000 sync points to get a second copy of Hiryuu Meta. Anyway, this guide will include information on how to get Hiryuu Meta, how to upgrade her skills, and how to get those meta crystals that are needed for limit breaking her. I will also do a quick analysis of her stats and performance in battle. On that note, let's get started. So first off, just how do you get your grubby mitts on Hiryuu Meta? First, I'll go through a quick summary, which will likely be the same steps in the future once they release other meta ships. And then we'll go through stuff more in depth. So step 1, finish the initial portion of the Operation Siren story campaign to unlock Ash's Showdown, as well as the ability to use and farm Ash's coordinates. Step 2 involves using 100 Ash's coordinates to challenge Hiryuu Meta, which can be done twice per day. And then for step 3, you either need to defeat Hiryuu Meta or make her retreat in order to earn synchronization points. Well, actually, you really just need to do a certain amount of damage, is what it is. And then step 4, just continue to earn Ash's coordinates to repeatedly challenge Hiryuu Meta by beating enemy ships or picking up items in Operation Siren maps. You can also assist other players 3 times a day by responding to their requests for backup in fighting Hiryuu Meta. And then last but not least is step 5, which is once you earn 5,000 sync points or synchronization points, you can unlock a copy of Hiryuu Meta. Now let's go more in depth. So first off, how do you unlock Ash's coordinates and Ash's Showdown? To do that, you will need to clear the first part of the Operation Siren campaign or story mode by finishing Southwest Ocean Ridge B, Chapter 1-6 Outpost, which will then cause a film reel to appear in the middle of the map. Approach said film reel and you will find your first batch of 100 Ash's coordinates. Which then brings up the next question, what's the best way to farm Ash's coordinates from Operation Siren? Admittedly, farming Ash's coordinates can be a bit of a pain, but you can accelerate the process by knowing the different sources that provide them. Let's go through some examples of how you can get them. First off are map pickups. So during the course of clearing maps from Operation Siren, you can run into pickup spots that have a chance of yielding Ash's coordinates. These include random supply boxes, as well as shiny squares that can randomly provide 10 Ash's points each. Although there are also times when you get more than that, like 15 points or 20 points, depending on the source. Like I picked up some boxes that actually yielded 15 points. Anyway, these sources can pop up when you enter a new map or while defeating enemies. One of the fastest ways I've been able to farm points is by doing these maps that are actually filled with boxes. If the RNG gods smile upon you, you can actually get all 100 points in just about a minute or so. Another source of Ash's coordinates would be the bosses. So in addition to regular mobs, the maps in Operation Siren will also have stronger bosses that boast multiple buffs and added effects. Beating one of these bosses would typically yield Ash's coordinates points as well. And then one other source would be your daily missions. So when you're visiting a friendly blue port in Operation Siren, you can enter the building and then find a tab for daily missions. Some of these give Ash's coordinates upon clearing, allowing you to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In order to find out the location of the daily missions once you accept them, click on the Information tab when visiting a port to pull up a list of the ones you've accepted. Click View for the daily mission you want to find and it'll show you the exact location. So once you have enough points, go back to the main Operation Siren menu and you'll notice that you can now click on the Ash's Showdown tab. Tap on Info Analysis and Hiryuu Meta will pop up to accept your challenge. Note that it takes 100 Ash's coordinates to challenge Hiryuu Meta. That, by the way, is also the maximum number of Ash's coordinates that you can hold, so make sure to use them before farming coordinates again, as you won't earn any more. In fact, a menu will actually pop up, notifying you that you've earned 100 points and that you can't earn any more, and clicking on that will actually take you to the Hiryuu Meta Challenge menu. In addition to the Start Battle option, you can also pick Request Support. This will allow you to get help from your friends guild, or other players in your server in order to lower Hiryuu Meta's overall HP. If you do ask for support, these fights kind of happen individually, so everyone will be contributing pretty much separately. Note that lower level versions of Hiryuu Meta die pretty quickly, so if you choose request support and just wait, she'll actually go down in less than a minute, even if you don't do anything. You can challenge Hiryuu Meta via Ash's coordinates twice per day. Each time that you beat her, Hiryuu Meta's challenge level goes up, with the maximum being level 15. This actually makes her more difficult, but also gives you more points when you fight her. Fighting a level 1 Hiryuu Meta, for example, gives 150 points after the battle, while fighting her level 15 version gives you a whopping 375 points. And that's even if you time out before beating her. Fighting her starts to become a challenge after level 11 or so, and then she's pretty much unkillable at level 15 when her actual ship level goes past the current player level cap of 120. Depending on how many folks join to help you, you might need to redo the battle repeatedly to take her down. Speaking of assisting other players in fighting Hiryuu Meta, just exactly how do you do that? So, in addition to finding Hiryuu Meta yourself, you can also respond to other players' request support invites 3 times a day. You don't get as many points as you would from finding her yourself, but it still adds up. Now, if you find yourself responding to other player requests via the Operation Siren menu, it might bring up a message saying that the coordinates have expired. This typically happens when fighting a low-level Hiryuu Meta, because players can typically defeat her in seconds before you can even have a chance to join. In cases like this, it's better to join player requests via the World Chat window, as this gives you time to join as long as you click the request as soon as it pops up in chat. By the way, the higher the level of Hiryuu Meta, the more points you get from assisting. Helping out against a level 3 Hiryuu Meta, for example, nets you 36 sync points, while a level 15 gives you 67 points. So if you add the points from your 3 assists with the points that you get from directly challenging her twice, you can earn up to 951 sync points per day. Okay, so now you got your sync points. How do you redeem them? Once you beat Hiryuu Meta, just go back to the Ash's Showdown tab and click the Collect button. This will allow you to get the points you have earned from battling her. From the same menu, click on Data Sync, which is a shortcut to the Meta Lab. Your sync points will then be added to your rewards pool. After getting your first copy at 5,000 points, you also have several opportunities to get duplicates of Hiryuu Meta. So the point thresholds for these are 5,000 points, 10,000 points, 15,000 points, 20,000 points, and then 25,000 points. These dupes are needed for limit-breaking Hiryuu Meta, by the way, so make sure to get all of them if you want to fully upgrade her. In between, you can also acquire items such as nanoceramic alloy or neuroplastic prosthetic arms, which can be used during restoration of Ashes-type ships. You basically want to redeem as many rewards from Hiryuu Meta's pool as you can in order to upgrade her to the max. So the next question is, how do you upgrade Hiryuu Meta and other meta ships? Also, how do you limit break them? Well, upgrading meta ships like Hiryuu Meta is different from regular ships or even priority research or PR ships. Not only do they require their own unique materials for the restoration upgrade process, leveling up their skills are also done differently. To upgrade a meta ship, you can either go to the ship's profile and tap on the research icon, or go to the lab section of the menu and then tap on Meta Lab. From here, you will have 4 options. That would be Synchronize, Rigging Fortification, Tactical Research, and Somatic Activation. So here's an explanation for each one. Clicking on the Synchronize tab lets you redeem the sync point rewards that you've earned from fighting the meta ships. The rewards include materials and items that you need to upgrade and limit break the current meta ship that's being featured, so it's a good idea to keep earning points daily even after you've unlocked a meta ship already. In the case of Hiryuu Meta, for example, farming 50,000 points should provide you all the key mats available in the sync point rewards that are related to her specific upgrade. These include 480 nanoceramic alloy and 220 neuroplastic prosthetic arms. In addition to these, you can also gain 40 crystallized heat resistant steel at 60,000 points and 40 super cavitation generators at 70,000 points. However, the items raise firepower and torpedo capabilities respectively, so you're basically getting them for other meta ships and not Hiryuu Meta because she can't use either. By the way, mats for upgrading Hiryuu Meta will also occasionally show up in the shops inside friendly ports in Operation Siren. Next is Rigging Fortification. This section is where you use the aforementioned mats in order to upgrade a meta ship's stats. In the case of Hiryuu Meta, for example, you will be using nanoceramic alloy to upgrade her aviation and neuroplastic prosthetic arms to upgrade her reload. As an example, Using 85 nanoceramic alloy resulted in plus 22 aviation for me, while using 45 neuroplastic prosthetic arms resulted in plus 7 reload. These also brought Hiryuu Meta's fortification rate up to 36%. So basically, upgrading stats also contribute to a metaship's overall fortification rate, which grants bonuses once you reach a certain percentage. Using Hiryuu Meta as an example, these are the bonuses that you get. Like I mentioned earlier, in addition to using sync point rewards, metaship materials also can be bought from the shops of the 4 blue ports. So that would be New York City, Liverpool, St. Petersburg, and Gibraltar. Selection, however, is random, so you might need to wait for the shops to refresh several times to see them. And then the next section is tactical training. This is where you can unlock and upgrade a metaship's skills. So unlike regular NPR ships, which start out with all their skills unlocked at level 1, you will need to manually unlock each metaship skill by using 5 skill books of the same color as the skill that you are obtaining. After that, leveling up a skill requires you to earn experience via different tasks, as opposed to continuously using skill books. Some of these tasks can be repeated infinitely, while others can only be done a set number of times. The experience earned can range from 2 points for defeating one enemy, all the way up to 500 points for taking part in an Ashes Showdown. Note that you can only level up one skill at a time, but you can also cycle between them. This is actually what I did, as opposed to just focusing on maxing out one skill first. I would at least recommend getting all her skills to say level 5 first, in order to take advantage of their added effects. By the way, this is when I started noticing new visual effects for the Cards of Light and Dark skill, for example. When it procced the Dark cards, I noticed that the number increased from 18 to 21, and then once the skill procced the Cards of Light, I noticed that the initial number of explosive orbs increased from 1 to 2. I'm not sure if level 5 is the exact point for the change, but you'll definitely have those added effects for sure by that point. Also, I haven't gotten Cherry Petal Memento and Scorched Blade to level 5 at this point, so I haven't been able to verify if those get visual changes at that level as well. By the way, the maximum skill experience you can earn in one day is 30,000 points. And then last but not least is Somatic Activation. This is where you can limit break a meta ship, which requires a special meta crystal for that specific ship. For Hiryuu Meta, for example, you will need a Meta Crystal Hiryuu, which can be obtained as rewards by accumulating sync points and getting additional copies of a meta ship. When you get a duplicate copy of Hiryuu Meta, for example, the dupe will turn into a Meta Crystal instead. I believe this is the case as long as you have an actual copy of Hiryuu Meta in your dock. Anyway, like regular ships, limit breaking a meta ship also requires you to level it up to a certain point. I personally verified that you can do your first limit break at level 10, and then your next one at level 30, just like non-meta ships. This also likely means that you will need 2 meta crystals, and also must reach level 70 with Hiryuu Meta in order to fully limit break her. Now let's do a quick overview of Hiryuu Meta's stats and abilities. On paper, Hiryuu Meta is not exactly a stat monster by any means, especially when compared to her regular retrofit version. By the way, I'm nowhere near level 120 for Hiryuu Meta, so I'm pulling these from the Azur Lane wiki, which is better than pulling them from my butt. Always cite your source. Anyway, Hiryuu Meta is lower than Hiryuu Retro on pretty much all her stats. In fact, the only stat that she has higher than her regular Retro version is oil cost, which is kind of funny. And not exactly a good thing. Then again, when you have higher oil costs, that usually means you should be a better ship. Usually. The good news is that, like Liam Neeson, Hiryuu Meta has a particular set of skills, and these can make up for some of her stat deficiencies. For example, let's look at her aviation stat of 340, which is below average and puts her in the lower half of all carriers and light carriers. While that looks kinda bad, she essentially has a permanent buff to her aviation stat thanks to her Cards of Light and Dark skill. That's because in addition to shooting out 2 potential different barrages, this skill also permanently boosts her aviation stat by 20%. So that means it's actually more like 408 instead of 340. This now puts her in line with Akagi Muse and Kaga. Her Scorched Blade skill, meanwhile, debuffs enemies that it hits, making them take 15% more damage from Hiryuu Meta's attacks for 15 seconds. The skill, by the way, triggers every 20 seconds, so you basically have a 5-second gap in between procs. Anyway, with proper timing, that's pretty much equivalent to having an aviation stat of about 469 when her planes hit the enemies while they are debuffed. And then when you're fighting Siren enemies, you also get an additional 8% damage boost, which further shores up her base aviation stat. Do be warned that she has piss poor accuracy. And by that, I mean she has the lowest hit stat of all carriers at 65. Oof. Unfortunately, none of her skills address that, so I'd look at auxiliary equipment in order to improve that instead. Otherwise, if you're looking at boosting her accuracy with another ship, I guess you can do that if you have a ship like Tokino Sora in your fleet, for example. Unfortunately, Shinano's accuracy boost won't work on her because Hiryuu Meta is not considered a Sakura Empire ship. In fact, if you go to the dock, you'll see that she's actually categorized under quote-unquote other. I assume that will be the case for future meta ships as well. This is actually one of the downsides of Hiryuu Meta at this point, since she doesn't benefit from any faction buffs unless they eventually release a ship that buffs meta fleets in the future. Survivability, meanwhile, can also be a concern. Her max HP of 4,721, for example, puts her in light carrier territory for health despite being a regular carrier. And then you also have her 47 evasion, which is also among the bottom of the pack. One way to improve her survivability is to not equip a Japanese plane. While this makes her lose out on a special airstrike every 15 seconds, she ends up gaining a buff to her defense in exchange. This includes 35% reduced damage for the first 4 attacks that hit her, essentially making her initial HP more like 6,373, at least for those first 4 hits. And then after those first 4 hits, she then takes 12% less damage from subsequent attacks afterward, making her HP more like 5,287. She also gains 12% more evasion after the first 4 hits, which then raises her evasion stat to about 53 or so. This places her in the middle of the pack alongside Illustrious and Arc Royal. Gear-wise, I haven't really looked in depth at the new gold options from Operation Siren, so I'll mostly focus on auxiliary equips at this time. That being said, make sure you put a good torpedo bomber on her, as that's where she has her highest efficiency at 150% versus 110% for her fighter and dive bomber planes. Anyway, if you're concerned about raising her base aviation, I'd go with the tried and true double gold steam catapults to give her extra punch. Otherwise, you can just go with 1 gold steam catapult and then add one of those special microphones that you get from the Universe in Unison event, such as the Resplendent Astrum, Sacred Lumiere, or White Hot Verheerender. How do you pronounce that? I don't know. This will boost her accuracy by 30 points if you happen to have the mic maxed out. And then in cases where you equip a Japanese plane in order to get that extra special airstrike, since you won't get the evasion boost from her skill, you can equip a high-performance hydraulic steering gear instead. So to summarize, you can either go with a double gold catapult, 1 catapult plus 1 Universe in Unison mic, 1 catapult plus 1 high-performance hydraulic steering gear, or 1 Universe in Unison mic plus 1 high-performance hydraulic steering gear. That was a mouthful. That is, unless you don't need to use something like a homing beacon for launch timings. Anyway, as far as Hiryuu Meta's place in the meta, no pun intended, I'm reserving judgment at this point since I've only gotten her to level 69 as of this video. Yeah, what an unfortunate number. Plus it'll take a while to max her skills and also get the requisite dupes to fully limit break her. So yeah, I can't give my full opinion at this point. That being said, I've actually had fun using her so far, especially given her skill set. Just note that in order for them to hit as many things as possible, you will need to give her the middle position of your back line, kind of like Shinano's butterflies. So she can still work at the top or the bottom, but you'll need to put her in the middle if you want to get the best coverage for her skills. Yeah, so she's been pretty fun to use so far, and I also like the option where you can play her more offensively or defensively, depending on whether you equip a Japanese plane or not. But I'm sure the community will have a better handle on her place in the meta as more people level her and her skills up. Anyway, what do you think of Hiryuu Meta so far? As always, please feel free to leave any thoughts or questions you may have in the comment section. Once again, this is Tabi Asobi, and thank you for watching.